Welcome back, dear listeners, to the Fright or Flight podcast, where we rank, recap, and review every horror movie in a given franchise. I'm Jumpscare Jer, or Geraldine, the Fright of the podcast.
And I'm Frankie, I'm the Flight of the podcast.
And today we are continuing on with our original Halloween timeline. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers.
10 years ago, he changed the face of Halloween, and now he's back.
That's right. We took a break from Halloween 3 where Michael Myers wasn't there.
Yes.
I guess the movie didn't do too good, so we're back to Michael Myers.
I don't think that it necessarily didn't do too well. I think that it is simply not included in the franchise. Michael Myers is not even in that film, if I'm being quite transparent.
I think the reason that they came back to Michael Myers is because the Season of the Witch bombed at the box office.
Well, it's one of those that actually has a very big cult following, similar to how Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is. Mm-hmm. And I am probably one of those that loves Season of the Witch. Season of the Witch is one of my favorite Halloween films. It really encapsulates Halloween as it, like, in general. You do get to see Michael Myers, but on a TV screen, so he's not involved in the story per se, but they do have a slight nod to him as a character, which is fun.
And John Carpenter does like Season of the Witch. He just doesn't like Halloween 2.
We're not going to talk about him for a little bit. We will have to mention him at some point because he is involved at some point in this story, particularly like drama, but not really drama. Anyway, so this film was released October 21, 1988. Let's talk about the climate of 1988 in general, because we've been kind of hopping in our little time machine and taking it back. So the current climate of 1988, the Olympics, the Winter Olympics were held in Calgary, and the Summer Olympics were held in, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I want to say it's Seoul, or it's like Seoul. Seoul. That's what I thought. Table tennis became an Olympic sport for the first time in Seoul, with Yoo Nam-kyu of South Korea winning the first gold medal. The U.S. presidential election was going on between Michael Dukakis and George Bush as they ran for president. The Soviet Union withdrew its troops from Afghanistan after a 9-year conflict. NASA resumed space shuttle launches after the Challenger disaster in 1986.
God-awful.
Soviet Union also launched its first reusable spacecraft, the Buran, in November 1988. A terrorist bomb brought down a passenger aircraft over Lockerbie, Scotland. The war ended in a UN-brokered ceasefire after Iraqi forces pushed the Iranian army out of Iraq. So that's for the Iraq and Iran war. The World Exposition was held in Brisbane, Australia. The event attracted many tourists and increased investments in the arts and culture industries, and that's the World Expo 88. Armenia earthquake, a 6.9 earthquake, also known as the Spitak, I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, earthquake, devastated Armenia December 7th. And then the Netherlands becomes European champion, which led to economic growth and a strong stock market performance. So those are just some history things.
You know, Big Bird was supposed to be on the Challenger.
Who?
Big Bird.
Oh, from Sesame Street?
Yeah.
R.I.P. That would have been awful. That would have been traumatizing for children.
Yeah, that would have been traumatizing. I know there was a school teacher on the Challenger. And they brought, like, the classroom to go see, like, it launch into space or whatever.
How devastating.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. I don't even know what you do, but yeah.
Okay, moving on, because I don't want to deal with those emotions. Some popular songs in 1988 were Faith by George Michael. Everyone loves it.
Because you gotta have faith, the faith, the faith.
Need You Tonight by Inks, or INXS. I'm pretty sure it's Inks. That's probably how I would pronounce it. I don't know. I don't know the name. I feel like I know that song, but I don't know how to pronounce their name. Anyway, Got My Mind Set on You, George Harrison, and another world famous song to be Rick rolled with, Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I don't know how to say that. You know, you talk about Yinks or whatever the hell you just said. I don't know how to pronounce that BBNO $ person.
It's Baby No Money.
Baby No Money. Okay.
Oh, yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, strange. People do weird things. I remember people made fun of Kesha's name for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, they'd be like, K, money sign ha. I don't know. Some popular films: Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Coming to America, Good Morning Vietnam. Some popular horror films: Phantasm 2, Beetlejuice, which we just recently talked about, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Friday the 13th 7, Hellraiser
Wow.
2, Child's Play, Pumpkinhead, The Serpent and the Rainbow, Lady in White, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, Night of the Demons, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and many, 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 many more. Because the 80s were the prime time for horror, baby.
Yeah, I guess so. We're probably going to cover a majority of those at some point during the podcast.
At some point, yes, at some point. Back to the origins. This film was directed by Dwight H. Little, written by Danny Lipsius, Larry Ratner, Benjamin Ruffner, and Alan B. McElroy. Alan B. McElroy also did the screenplay for this, so the story was written by all four, but the screenplay was finalized and completed by Alan McElroy and written by him. This is produced by none other than Mustafa Akkad, who we've talked about previously on the podcast.
That's right.
The budget was $5 million, box office domestic $6.8 million for the opening weekend, and globally $17.7 million, which is not too bad.
No, and I heard this movie got pretty mixed reviews. Like I heard some
mixed
people really
reviews.
don't like it. Some people love this movie. So it's very polarizing.
So, fun fact,
Okay.
I'm one of the ones who really love it. It's great. I love it.
That's good to know.
It's really, really fun. It's just a fun movie. There's just something about this one that just feels different, and it's very nostalgic to me.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
So you fall on the side that really likes this movie?
You hated it.
I love it too.
Okay.
It's so good.
It's really
I don't
good.
know why. I'm so excited to do this episode because of how much I liked it.
That's how I felt when I watched it. I was like, as a kid, just growing up watching it, I was like, oh my God, I just love this one.
It's so charming. It's so fun.
It is. It really, really is. So going back on the plot, the only one who returns from any of the previous films is Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis, or Dr. Sam Loomis. We have Danielle Harris as her film debut as Jamie Lloyd, Ellie Cornell as Rachel Carruthers, who is Jamie's sister, or adopted sister, rather. George P. Wilbur as Michael Myers, Michael Pataki as Dr. Hoffman, Bo stars Sheriff Ben Meeker, Kathleen Kinmont as Kelly Meeker, Sasha Jensen as Brady. I don't know why out of all of the characters, he only has one name and the rest have full names.
Yeah, it's funny when they do that, right? Where they're
Himbo
like,
Brady, you know?
Officer number 4. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Then we have Carmen Philby as Reverend Jackson P. Sayer and Danny Ray as Tommy Doyle. There's a lot of other people to credit, but there's a lot of people to credit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, do your research. The general plot of this film, I don't know. Do you want to read it? If you feel inclined.
All right, so 10 years after the original massacre, the invalid Michael Myers awakens on All Hallows Eve and returns to Haddonfield, Illinois, to kill his 7-year-old niece, Jamie Lloyd. Can Dr. Loomis stop him?
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, yeah, let's just jump right in. How'd you feel about this movie? Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like.
I have a lot of opinions about this movie, Geraldine.
Okay.
I thoroughly liked it. Like, it was such a fun movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, in that I hear a lot about how this movie was meant to return to like what they did with the original or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in a lot of ways they did do that, where I feel like the second movie at the hospital, while it was meant to be in the same style as the original, it, obviously has this other location that it's set in with a whole different group of people.
Mm-hmm.
While this one goes back to the babysitting element, goes back to the neighborhood element, goes back to the officers. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
not only does it do that, but it does it in a way more complex way than the first one, where I was complaining a little bit when we watched the original Halloween 1978 that I felt like there wasn't too much going on. I felt like it was a beautiful movie and I saw how it set everything up, but I think in Halloween 4, it executes it on a level that is much more attuned to our like movie sensibilities for nowadays. So it really kept me entertained, and it's a movie that I can see coming back to.
Absolutely. What did you think of the tie-in to the originals as well? Because obviously we don't have Laurie Strode, but we have a mentioning of her. She is Jamie's mother.
Right.
And they also name her Jamie as like an homage to Jamie Lee Curtis, because Jamie Lee Curtis did not want to reprise her role, which is ironic because she does come back in different timelines. But that's a different story for another day. Different timeline talks, because I don't want to get too too far ahead of myself there. But what did you think about that tie-in? Does it make you care more about Jamie, you think?
No, not really at all. Like, honestly, it didn't have to do anything with the previous story at all, if I'm being honest, because like in Halloween 2, I kind of complained that like the whole sister reveal like didn't do anything for me. Mm-hmm. And in this, it continues to mean nothing. I don't understand why Michael is after his niece. It doesn't make any sense. The same way I was like, okay, so it's his sister that still doesn't provide any motivation for me. Same thing with it being his niece. It doesn't make any difference to me. So I actually don't really care that anybody's related to Laurie at all. And in general, I have the opinion of like, they do minor things to allude that this is further in the same world as like Halloween 2, in that Dr. Loomis's face and a hand is burned up a little, and so is Michael Myers. Like, you can see his hand has some like burnt effect. So it doesn't line up with what happened in Halloween 2.
I was going to ask you, like, did you have any thoughts on that?
Like I said, I would have rather this movie, and maybe everybody's gonna get mad at me for saying this, continued almost like Halloween 2 never happened.
Okay, interesting that you say that. So I'm gonna listeners at home who are aware of other timelines and are just watching this with us, take a note of that. Write it down. Keep that somewhere in your mental notebook somewhere, because we're gonna come back to that thought on a different year in another timeline. Let's talk about the mask. So this is something that I have a pet peeve about.
Okay.
So comparing the mask, obviously the first film was the OG, great. The second mask in the second film, they had to work with a different, they had to make a new one. It was wider, whatever, because the guy had like a larger face or something like that. So there's a lot of like semantics that went into it. I didn't hate the second mask either, but this third one, it's laughable.
It is laughable.
It's ugly.
I like it.
It's so ugly. Like it takes me away from the experience where I should be scared, because I'm like,
it's not very scary.
It's not.
It's to me, the biggest difference is the detail that it lacks detail. Like it looks like so plain. It doesn't have any ironic shape to it. I feel like it's just like a flat white.
No, I completely agree with that.
And I know there's some discrepancies in the continuity of the mask in this too.
Yes.
There are some points, specifically towards the end, when they're being chased through the school, where you actually see Michael Myers with blonde hair.
Yes, I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah, I looked into it, and apparently it was just because they grabbed the wrong mask for that night of shooting, and everybody, the director claims
Michael.
The director claims that everybody was like probably just really tired and just like didn't notice. And he says like, yeah, we probably should have gone back and, grabbed the right mask or whatever, but everybody was too tired to do something like that.
Quite crazy if you ask me. I mean, a blonde Michael, like almost like a Brad. But not quite a Brad, Maybe a Bradley.
So it makes me ask the question, like, if it was quote unquote the wrong mask, why do they have a mask that's blonde?
Because it's originally a blonde mask. They dye it.
Okay.
Oh, so yes, because it's Shatner.
Yeah, it's a Shatner. So when they buy it, it's blonde.
Right. So, but that's what I'm getting at is, so they have a mask that's just sitting around that's painted white, but not dyed brown. Why?
To me, it'd make more sense to do the hair first and then go paint.
They have a problem with each movie with this. We're like, oh, we got to get it to look like the one from the original, and then it's like, oh, it has too long of a sideburns. It needs to be shaven up. Oh, the hair isn't the right level of darkness. So in general, they have a bunch of masks, and they just wait until one lines up. I know another problem with this movie too is that the eyes.
Yes.
Like there was a lot of complaints about. And during production about like it being too small, wanted to cut the holes a little bigger, and then the holes being too big, and it's just this whole mess. The mask is a big like point of contention.
Speaking of that, absolutely, I wrote that down because I did some research on that, and it was crazy. So the producers, being producers, of course, being people who are like, I paid a lot of money to make this movie, so I want you to do and say what I do, or do and say what I want, whatever. The reason the mask is not consistent throughout the film is because between takes, the producer requested the larger eye holes, like you mentioned. The producer fired someone on the crew, actually, I believe the person who was behind the mask as well, and he fired somebody in front of everyone. And this was due to safety concerns with the glue, because if they were to cut the holes, they had to make sure everything, and it would be out of the concern of the safety for the person who was wearing it, which was Tom Morga, who was later replaced by George P. Wilbur anyway. But unbeknownst to the producer, a Fangoria writer was present that day. The writer knew Horn, who was the one who got fired in front of everyone, was sympathetic to the stresses that he may have been under. The writer went to the producer with an ultimatum, told Horn immediately to hire that Horn, told the producer immediately to hire Horn back, or Fangoria would do nothing to promote the movie. So he got his job back.
Yeah, that well, first of all, awesome for that guy. Sorry
Yeah.
for the person that was originally playing Michael Myers.
Right.
Apparently, he was in the movie for a good bit. Like all the stuff you saw, like at the garage, was him. The scene where you saw him like mask himself at the grocery store with the little girl when she was in there, freaked out. That was him. So he was in it for a pretty good amount. In general, I get the sense of a lot of these like productions. Maybe I don't know if it's of this kind of movie, but like stuff like that happens. Like people get emotional and they're like, "Oh, you get out of here!" Then
It's so strange because it's like it is not that serious. First and foremost, like I just really don't understand the concept of I'm going to go on a power trip. And if you're not doing what I want you to do, I'm going to make it hell for you. There's a history of that in these, Hollywood films in general.
Yeah,
But
I think that's what it is. It's the ego of Hollywood.
You don't hear about it as much with the horror films, I feel like. And if you do, it's quite literally a horror story in itself. And it's like sad because it's like, it should not be that way. I like the camaraderie, the community that these films bring, because a lot of the time when you look at the behind the scenes, they're having a blast.
Yeah, and I mean that was the case for the first Halloween movie. They were all friends and family in that one. And I feel like over the years, the more corporate the franchise that's been getting, it kind of leans away from that. But I still hear most of the cast and crew had a good time making this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about some other fun tidbits. This film was primarily filmed on location in Utah, just due to making it easier for scenery and whatnot. It was also filmed in spring. Again.
Oh, that's funny. I'm sure it's easier on the budget too.
It probably was. March in spring, and the shooting lasted 41 days. Harris and Cornell, which was Rachel and Jamie, were required to be on set for 36 of the 41 days, which is crazy because Danielle Harris was 11 years old. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you'd hope that they had protections in place for her because, that's insane.
Well, yeah. I heard a story. We recently watched earlier this year, we watched a vampire movie called Abigail.
Yeah.
And I feel like a kind of a similar situation where there was two characters in that movie that were paired together and they were together for most of the movie and its filming. And I feel like there was like a sense of protection in general over the girl because she is, a young girl actress.
Right.
And with this movie, being made like, I don't know, like 30, 40 years ago, I could tell it was a little different because I heard like, you remember that scene in the movie where you have, what's the little girl's name?
Jamie.
Where Jamie is like looking through the photos of like her mom, like Lori, and sees it, and then she's like in the closet and she gets scared.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, originally her performance wasn't scary enough, so the director came in there and like got stern with her or whatever, and then closed the closet on her and turned off the lights to like really get her scared, and then she gave like the performance that he was looking for.
I hate hearing that because especially for her being a child, I think that's kind of uncalled for. But I also understand sometimes you have to go to the lane.
I guess so. I mean, she gave a good performance, and the story I heard directly from that person.
Yeah, from Danielle Harris.
Yeah, from her, and she says it like lovingly,
and probably endearingly because she is still very much involved. Well, she has a lot of love for the franchise, and I don't want to talk about this part in particular today just because it does involve future films. They're not tied to any timelines in particular, but Danielle Harris just has a lot of love for the franchise in general, and I think that she gets overlooked a lot. Now, some people do have complaints about her acting as an adult. I don't necessarily think that she is the worst actress ever.
Well, I think she killed it in this one.
She did great as a child, but I haven't really seen a lot of her stuff as an adult, but I think she does fine. She does a fine job to me. I don't have many complaints, and she's also... I think I would like to see her in more scary roles, like not specifically like final girl roles. I would love to see her as like a villain or an antagonist, dirtied up teeth, that kind of thing. I could just see her doing really well as some sort of like really creepy, like succubus.
I could see that.
Yeah. Very easily. Kind of like a Jennifer's Body type of thing, like where she's really beautiful and then like, fun. I just feel like she would do really well with that.
Yeah, me too.
So Alan B. McElroy, the guy who wrote this script, he wrote it in 11 days and beat the writer's strike by mere hours.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, a little bit about what was going on there. I didn't find the thing that kind of sparked it, but we had another large Writers Guild of America strike for 155 days beginning in March and ending in August 1988, making it at the time the longest strike in WGA history. That directly impacted, of course, countless films and TV shows. I don't remember how long ours was. I was going to compare, because I was curious, because I know we just had a strike, and that was a long strike as well.
Yeah, I don't know how. I think it was longer.
Our recent one,
Yeah.
I feel like it was longer
Yeah, I
as
think it was
well.
longer.
But for 88, it was shocking. I was like, oh, I didn't really know.
The one that just recently happened was 148 days.
Oh, not cool. Oh, wow. So that could still be the longest strike that we have there. Then very crazy to me, because I was like, wow, didn't know that even happened because I wasn't born.
Yeah, I like Alan McElroy. Like, I feel like I saw him talk a little bit, and I think he's an interesting guy, and I thought that his script is really fun.
I think it is too. I think it's a great script.
I've seen him talk about like how this is one of his favorite experiences in writing for a movie, because they, for the most part, filmed everything that he wrote. Whereas in the future, that's not the case in Hollywood. Usually it's like you turn in a script and then they do everything they want with it, change it, delete things, add things.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like what he wrote happened in the movie.
Yes, it's frustrating because it's like me being the way that I am, I'm a control freak. If I wrote something and I was hired on as the writer, I would absolutely have to be a Stephen Chbosky. You know, he did Perks of Being a Wallflower. He wrote the book. He wrote his own screenplay, and he directed his own film. I would have to do all of it because I don't trust people with my vision.
Well, there's not many people who get that opportunity.
There's not, but I would damn make sure. I'd be like, no one's touching this. This is my script. But even if they were to pay me a lot of money for my script, I'd be like, I'm heavily going to be involved in this process, and I would put my foot down.
Well, so yeah, well that's what makes or breaks it. You know what I mean? Like that's what
true.
determines. Like, never mind. Then we'll go with like Judy B. Jones's script instead.
You're damn right. Let me tell you, because interestingly enough, talking about scripts, so the Canon Group is what they're called. It's like a group of producers. They contracted Deborah Hill and John Carpenter to work on a screenplay for Halloween 4, but they didn't like their treatment that they submitted. I don't know why it's called a treatment, but I guess it's kind of like what their plan is.
Their concept, yeah.
So Cannon ultimately did not produce the film, and Hill and Carpenter sold the rights to Mustafa Akkad, who promptly developed this film with a completely new script. And with that, it just sounds like a little pity party. It's so funny. So John Carpenter wrote the treatment for this film that had more of a ghostly psychological approach to the Michael Myers mythos, and concerned Haddonfield and what effect the events of the first two films had on the town and townspeople. The concept was later rejected, of course, in favor of the typical slasher fare, at which point Carpenter left out of the film, and making this the first in their series to not have participation from him. But they do include his theme.
They do. It's hard to get away from, and it's so good.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's great.
But it's just kind of a silly little tidbit that I felt like needed to be shared. It just sounds almost like they didn't like my script.
Well, that's how it is in Hollywood. Like, I've learned, it's interesting how writers work in general to me.
Yeah.
Where they just, like, they get paid to write scripts, and then they might not even use the scripts. Like, it's like, for the most part, if you're a writer in Hollywood, I get the sense that you will spend all year writing scripts, getting paid for writing them, submitting them, and then none of them ever even coming to fruition.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing to me is that, I mean, I can only imagine how many unused films there are, and it's like, people could pull from those and just make movies. And I'm sure there's so many original ideas out there that nobody gets the opportunity to use. And we've had a lot of, like, you know, creative, more original films come forth this year specifically, but even in the past couple of years as well. I think it's getting more and more prevalent, but I know that people still play on that whole nostalgia thing. And it's commercialized, you know, if it's successful, they're going to continue to do more of it.
Well, Alan McElroy, who wrote this movie, he didn't return to do the next movie, but you can tell he kind of wishes that he did, and parts of the script that were taken out of his original script, like I said, for the most part they did what he wrote, but there's some stuff that they didn't. Well, after you submit a script, you kind of transfer ownership.
Yeah, you do.
So for the next movie, I don't know what exactly, but I know that some of the stuff that he wrote for this movie that was taken out, they reused for the next movie.
That's kind of bullshit. I hope they credited him.
I hope so.
We'll find out for the next film for sure. But yeah, I thought that's crazy. The Mask as well. I meant to share this with you since we talked about the monstrosity that is the Halloween.
I like the mask.
I think it's ugly. If he was walking towards me, I'd be like, please, sir, take it off. I'd rather see your face at this point. Just kill me and show me your face with dignity. The mask on the movie poster looks more like the one used in the first two films than the one being used in Halloween 4. That is because it's from a still from Halloween 2. So that's why.
Not surprised.
Yeah. The director did extensive research on Halloween and the history of Halloween. Many of the harvest images were put in the creepy opening sequence. I loved the opening sequence. Really gets you in the feel for a dreary, gloomy fall. And again, I can just kind of smell the tobacco as I'm watching that opening sequence. I can hear the soggy leaves and even the crunch of the other leaves that are freshly fallen. It's just a very specific image and sound and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very specific vibe. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's any tobacco that grows in Utah.
I don't know,
I
but
know
to
that's,
me, all I thought about was the smoking of tobacco.
It's like the intro has all of those fall vibes that you're talking about, and then the rest of the movie doesn't, because it's all very green and very spring, because
That's
that's
'cause
when they recorded.
They put you in the mindset. They said, "Hey, we're in the fall time. Pretend it's fall."
No, they're gaslighting you. That's what they're doing. They're gaslighting.
That's movie magic.
That is movie magic.
Yeah.
That's your submission to reality. You're
Yeah.
you're
Movie
in
magic would have
there.
been color grading, so all the green grass is orange.
Well, they sold me. I was like, oh yeah, it's fall.
I don't question it. I mean,
Yeah,
but
me
again,
neither.
like I watched this movie like a lot when I was a child. I see pumpkins. It's fall. It's fall time, baby. That's all it is to me. So
I agree.
quick. I'm very easily manipulated, but don't take that out of context. George P. Wilbur frequently would raise his mask up between takes just to remind a young Danielle Harris that they were still making a movie and that he was actually not going to hurt her, which I thought was kind of cute.
Yeah, he seems like a really cool guy. I know he's one of the taller
He
Michael
is.
Myers,
He is
and so that's
I
cool.
think he's one of the tallest, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if those statistics were like prior to the recent films or not, but I thought that was really cool. Wilbur wore hockey pads under his suit as well to give Michael a more imposing figure.
Interesting.
The guy who plays Michael in Halloween 5 is a larger, more stocky man as well. So that kind of helps with, setting up that image, I think.
Yeah. What's really cool to me too is that most of the time the people that get to play Michael and the two people that played Michael in this movie were both stuntmen, which makes complete
I
sense. I
love
mean, if you're
it.
wearing a mask and
Yeah.
like you might as well get a stuntman to go ahead and perform all those acts.
I found it. Wilbur is the third tallest actor to play Michael Myers at 6'2.5". So 6 foot 2.5 inches. Sorry, I had to say it out loud to really process it. I was like, that's tall.
Do they really have to throw in the 0.5?
Yeah, well, just give him the half.
Okay.
Danielle Harris was 11 years old in this film, playing a 7-year-old. Her character was 7. I thought that was kind of weird, but I feel like she kind of plays it off. She doesn't look 11 to me.
No,
She
me
looks-
neither.
She looks
But
pretty
I have a
young.
really hard time telling children's ages. So
Well,
you could have told me she was anywhere from 7 to 14, and I'd be like, yeah.
okay. Easy for you too. Let's see. At the bottom of the stairs were the TV in the Meeker's home, which is the sheriff and, the other girl, Karen or whatever the hell her name is. The one with the boobs, I guess.
Yeah.
A pair of plastic hands are visible. This is a possible reference to the silver hands seen in the mother's bedroom in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Jamie
Jamie
Lloyd, the character, continues to be addressed in this film, Halloween 5 and Halloween 6, so she does not go away. She is kind of our new target. Ellie Cornell, who played Rachel, and Danielle Harris, who played Jamie Lloyd, they both kept things from the film. Danielle Harris kept her clown costume, later went trick-or-treating in it, and she also sold her costume later to a fan. And Ellie Cornell kept her jean jacket that she wore in the film.
Oh, that's cool.
I
That's fun.
would keep everything.
I would try to keep as much
I
as
would
possible.
keep as much as I possibly could. Oh my God. That would be the coolest thing in the world to be like, this is from this film that I would have a museum. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would keep a candlestick and be like, this candlestick was our prop that I hit, Miss Scarlet over the head with in the billiard room. Like, I would keep the specific props and I would have a story. I'd make a little museum of it, have the little, here's what we did for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I love playing Clue. Clue's a fun game.
Clue's a great time.
Throughout this whole movie, I kept on thinking like, oh, because Rachel's like, oh yeah, your mom used to babysit me. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh, is she the little girl from Halloween 1? Mm-mm. She should be.
They had toyed with that idea, right? Lindsay is a girl who takes Rachel and Jamie to the discount mart It was going to be revealed as Lindsay Wallace from 78 and have a larger role in the film, but that was cut for budget reasons. And the third boy hanging out with Brady and Wade in the drugstore is meant to be Tommy Doyle from the original film, which is also really interesting. But they don't really do much with it. They just kind of like throw it in and that's it.
That's fine. I just feel like it didn't even have to be the same actress. You could have just told me, like, oh, yeah, this is from the girl from the original movie. That would have tied it in a little better for me than it's just, like, random niece.
I get that. I do get that. Because then you'd have a little bit more of a connection. Like, oh, yes, these kids experience trauma.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, I mean, the events take place 1978, right? So 1978. So in 3 years' time, she had to have had Jamie or something. Because Jamie's 7 years old, according to the film. So at least 2 to 3 years, she would have had to have Jamie after that. And then Jamie is now 7 years old in the film, and it's taking place 1988. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So then if Rachel is what, like 18 potentially? So 3 years earlier, she would have, no, not 3 years earlier, sorry, 10 years earlier, she would have been like 8. So that would have been about right, you know, for her to be babysat by, you know, Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
I just have to like process it out loud. So that's mostly what I'm doing with you right now, is just processing out loud like the timeline there. Because I was thinking the same thing, like, how's that make sense?
Don't get me wrong. I really like Rachel's character in this movie. Like, I actually like her a little more than Laurie. Just because I feel like she's kind of a go-getter.
She's really resourceful, and I feel like she doesn't get her stars. I mean, obviously, Jamie Lloyd being the center of the attention a lot of the time.
But it doesn't feel like that. Like the movie almost acts as if Michael is after Rachel, not Jamie.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, obviously he is after Jamie. I think it's just an interesting way
because
that they
obviously
tie it all
Rachel
in.
is supposed to be like our Laurie, right?
Right. She's supposed to be like the babysitter, the one who's taking care of this kid and stuff. And I mean, I like this idea that she is, I don't know, it's almost like she's open to being, you know, a caregiver and a family member to Jamie, but there's also some hesitancy. I feel like it's just mostly the age difference.
I guess so. I mean, there is, at the beginning of the movie, you kind of see her like a little upset that she has to take care of Jamie, and poor Jamie is like, he overhears her being like, oh man, like, oh, I'm sorry for ruining your life, basically.
Yeah. And it sucks because obviously it's not like it was intended, because it's implied that Laurie passed away 11 months prior. And it's like, wow, that's a lot for a kid to go through. And we don't get to know much about what happened, but it's kind of like, okay, well, now she has this new family taking care of her. And I don't necessarily know if they really explain. I can't remember. It's escaping my brain today. I'm so sorry. Do they explain explicitly who Michael Myers, like, who did she explain how she knows the correlation? Because I've suddenly forgotten. My brain is like off.
Like how she was adopted?
No, how Jamie knows Michael Myers, other than maybe potentially word of mouth from Laurie.
No, they don't explain it.
Because
I don't think she does.
No, I think that she's told that, like, you know, the other kids bully her and say, like, your uncle's a murderer.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
yes,
right.
you're right. Okay. That's how she finds out, though. Okay. So that my brain was just like, I cannot remember for the life of me what this connection is and how, like, she knows, because obviously, like, why else? If you didn't know anything about it, why would you be, like, freaked out? Like, oh, like, he's the boogeyman. Like, I feel like it just narratively wouldn't make sense being like that she, you know, unless somebody told her, but that makes more sense thinking about it.
Well, I still don't think, like, for example, at the beginning of the movie, she has a lot of, like, visions of Michael Myers. I don't think she's ever, in my head canon at least, she's never seen the man.
Yeah, that's what doesn't make any sense to me. Is like when I'm watching it back, I'm like, why did I think this was so good in that instance? Because, like, narratively speaking, it makes no sense whatsoever.
No, and I think there's a lot of that in this movie, but I don't think that's this movie's strong suit, personally.
Yeah, I would agree. I really think that one of the things that I enjoy about this duo, because I do like them as a duo, Jamie and Rachel, I think that Rachel is very resourceful, almost as resourceful, if not more resourceful, than Laurie was in,
I agree,
specifically the first film. I think that she, you know, going on the roof as she did, that whole chase scene was insane. And the actress was so dedicated. She actually did get hurt, and she came back after being, you know, after going to the hospital, had bandages, and Danielle Harris said that it was, like it didn't even phase her.
Yeah, I mean, I heard about that. In general, by the way, that scene where they're on the roof.
Insane.
Originally, the plan in the script that Alan McElroy wrote, the plan was that Officer Meeker and Michael Myers were going to have a fight in the basement, and something that happens down there was going to set off a fire. So there was going to be a huge fire surrounding the house, and that's what pushed everybody onto the roof. And so, like, while all that stuff was going on in the roof, there was supposed to be like fire all around the house or whatever.
That would have been way more intense.
Cool. But as far as like her getting hurt, I know that there was in general, that roof, they built it. They originally went out and tried to scout for like real houses and a roof to shoot on. And then maybe they thought, well, what if we do green screen? And then they thought maybe green screen won't work because if people can see through it and it looks weird, then a lot of people are going to be upset considering how like practical the original film was.
Yeah.
So instead they decided to just build like a fake roof, like 6 feet off the ground. And when they built it, one of the staples was left out, like it was protruding from the roofing, and when she slid down the roof on her stomach, it sliced her like straight up her stomach. She said it wasn't like it wasn't like a severe wound or anything. It was all surface level. But they still had more to shoot, so they just patched her up, and she kept on doing her thing.
What's crazy to me is I'd be done for. I'd be like, take me out, coach. I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done. But that's insane. That actually can. I mean, stuff like that happens, and I feel like when you're in a rush, things like that are bound to happen. Especially because I mean, this movie only 41 days is not a very long time to shoot.
No,
a movie.
It's not, and I mean, it's hard. Like, it's easy to be upset. Like for me, like, could you imagine somebody tells you like, "Hey, slide down this roof," and you slide down it, there's a staple that slices your stomach open.
It's almost like, did you do this on purpose?
But at the same, who do you blame there? Like,
I don't know, but get that financial compensation, baby. She should have.
I doubt it, but I would have tried. But yeah, it's like there's the people that worked on that. Obviously, they didn't do that on purpose. You know what I mean? So it's what can you do? I know when they were shooting that whole thing, they had like mattresses all around in case anybody fell off the fake roof, as well as like stunt people waiting to like catch anybody if somebody fell off.
Insane. That's my fear. That's my worst nightmare right there. Harris also revealed that when her character, Jamie, runs through the neighborhood banging on doors and screaming that someone, going to hurt her kind of thing, someone actually called the cops. And the Inquirer later ran a story that Harris was almost kidnapped off the set, which is not true.
That's crazy.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
The fact that she was so convincing and stuff. I mean... But it's like, you didn't try to like offer help, but you just immediately called the cops instead of, it's kind of like the thing that we talked about in the earlier films.
I'm rolling my eyes at you so hard because you wouldn't try to help.
I wouldn't. You're right.
No.
Well, okay. Because then what if the killer's coming to get me? I don't want to die.
Well, that's what it's called.
I wouldn't be able to help you if I'm dead.
Well, maybe you could help.
All I would do is just slow the killer down a little bit because they'd be focused on
life, me. Like Rachel would.
But I don't want to die.
Fair enough.
I mean, let's be honest. There's a level of us that we do, but we don't,
Sure.
Catch my drift. So we talked about how they tied this into the original films, which they didn't really want it to be like a continuation, like directly. But in the original script, the opening shot was of a long hospital corridor exploding and throwing Loomis from the explosion in reference to the ending of Halloween 2 and tying how Loomis survived into this film because obviously we see him with burn wounds and scars and stuff.
That would have been cool to see.
But they were like, no.
I mean, I could tell that could be too expensive.
Well, yeah, it could have been. I think that it would have been cool to see that instead of the montage of fall things that we got. But I didn't hate the
like
opening
montage,
either.
Yeah.
It was kind of like cozy, like Halloween.
It was cozy.
Oh, Halloween,
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. And also, like I would have enjoyed to see that, like seeing the explosion and seeing the aftermath, kick it right back off. And that would also explain how Loomis wasn't burned so much. I also read that Loomis didn't like the burn marks, like the actor, Donald Pleasance, didn't like the burn makeup they did on his face because he was watching like the dailies with his girlfriend.
Yep.
And his girlfriend said, like, you look like you got a fried egg on your face. And he hated that, so he went to the people to do the makeup.
He had a girlfriend in this film. You know, he was like 69 years old at like when they were filming this.
You're never too old to stop getting hosed. So he was still playing it out here. And so they replaced the makeup or whatever. But I know during that car ride with that, you know, like that apocalyptic seer church guy that he gets in the van with. By the way, I wish he came back. I'm surprised he was just there for that one scene. I thought it was great. I was like, oh, he's going to come back at the end of the movie.
What's funny is the director had to keep feeding his lines to him.
Oh, really? Yeah. I was talking to Bailey. Was like, it's so funny that Loomis found like the one guy in the world that talks just like he does.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really funny. But anyway, during that whole scene, it swaps back and forth the footage in the editing to like the scrambled egg burn and to the new burn, the scrambled egg burn.
So it's very not like the continuity.
I didn't notice so personally.
I personally didn't notice it either, just because I don't know. I'm not watching for that. I'm watching narratively mostly. And so then when people point that out and I go back and watch it, I'm like, oh, now I'm not going to be able to unsee that. So it's always funny. Sometimes I can pick up on things like that. I'm not as good about it as Patrick, my partner, is.
Yeah.
He is very good about it. He's like, oh, he was right there, and now look at him now. He's not there anymore. He's doing this. Like he has like a good, like he always will point out the things that are not consistent, and I'm like, shut up, it's a movie. Shut up.
The only visual detail that I noticed was the blonde hair Michael.
Yeah.
And I only noticed it so much specifically because at first when I was watching it, I thought it was one of the officers. I was like, oh, like they
just another white man, you know?
Yeah, but no, I guess it was Michael. And after, you know, watching the scene that led up to it.
Yeah, that's crazy. So another cool thing, the Vincent drugstore that Jamie goes to buy her costume in is seen 5 years later in the film The Sandlot.
Oh, cool.
Did we talk about The Sandlot before? Have
I
you
don't
seen
think
it?
so. No, I haven't seen it.
That's probably why. Okay. Yeah, you need to watch it. You're killing me, Smalls.
That's the one about basketball, right?
It's called The Sandlot. It's baseball.
Okay.
You should watch it. It's actually great. It's iconic. Anyway, so moving on. I just recently found out in my research that Akkad, the producer, produced all of the Halloween films until 2002, and he was murdered in 2005.
Yeah, during a terrorist bombing.
Oh,
I talked about it.
We did talk about this. Okay. It didn't occur to me. And I was like, did we talk about this? I was like, he was murdered? I guess the way that, like, we talked about it, it just didn't seem real. And now I was like, when I hear the word murder, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Murdered?
You said R.I.P. I think that first episode.
Oh, that's so insensitive of me. Dr. Loomis asks for Sheriff Brackett, but he retired in 1981, which is a direct reference to when we last saw his character in Halloween 2, which I thought was fun.
That is neat. I like those little details.
I do too. When they I live for story continuity, stuff like that.
Can I tell you how I wanted the movie to end, or how I suspected it would?
Yes, please do.
I thought when they introduced the priest guy, who is oddly the only person in the universe who agrees with Dr. Loomis, and also happens to be the one that picked him up off the side of the road.
It's funny because I feel like when Dr. Loomis gets inside the truck, he's like, who's this weirdo?
Yeah, and then it's like the weirdo who is quote unquote crazy has the exact same views as him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was supposed to be like a wake up call or what. I don't know. I thought they were going to use the priest again. In my opinion, the priest was like an unused Chekhov's gun. I feel like it was like I'm for real. Like, I feel like they set him up to be important, and then he was just never mentioned again, and they wanted you to forget about him.
Man, you know? I would have loved. I loved his character. I would have loved to see him again.
For anyone who's listening who doesn't know what I'm talking about, Chekhov's gun is just like a writing element where it's like if you introduce a gun, it's going to be shot, right? So if you introduce an element, it is going to be used and expanded upon. I thought they were going to expand upon using the priest character, but they never did. In my opinion, you know, we've tried shooting Michael, burning Michael. Like, I was like, okay, now they'll actually dive into like this religious aspect. Maybe they'll try and exorcise Michael.
Interesting.
Because he's supposed to be like this quote unquote embodiment of evil. You know, they could have said that like he's like Satan spawn or something like that. Maybe he's being like possessed by a demon somehow.
He's dark-sided.
Yeah, maybe he's dark-sided. Maybe he's like, I thought maybe they could have. There was an opportunity here. Maybe we'll see it in the future. I don't know because I haven't seen future movies. But there's an opportunity where they could be like, well, maybe Michael's possessed by a demon and hunting down his family because of like his family's like past transgressions or something. Like maybe they've been sinners in the past.
See,
or something.
You're making too much sense for this franchise. I love
you're not
everything
wrong.
you're putting down, and I wish we got that kind of motivation.
You're not
Because
wrong.
so right now it's just like Michael Myers bad guy.
I know,
Yeah.
and I want to see some motivation for him hunting down his family specifically.
Me too,
And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, you have this wacky priest character who I like and find funny and hilarious, especially in combination with Dr. Loomis, who is
Yeah.
the quote unquote logical one.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, you know, Dr. Loomis in my head is like this crazy guy running around trying to kill his patient. While like, and then when he gets into this car with this other crazy guy, he turns into the straight man.
Exactly. So they pair so well together
Yeah,
in
I
such a
agree.
weird, silly little way. And I was like, okay, so they got to bring the priest back, and maybe they'll like I said, exercise Michael Myers, and that could be like their next option of trying to like quote unquote kill him or get rid of him.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. And I think what was really happening
That would have been really creative,
was,
actually.
you know, Chekhov's gun, the whole thing is like that. It builds tension, right? Like, oh, there's a gun here. When the hell is it going to get used?
Yeah.
Well, in this, I feel like it was actually more typical of a trope that we've seen before in horror movies of just like visiting the creepy guy at the gas station. I felt like
Yeah.
it was one of those scenes where it's like, here's this like weird affliction here for a second.
Yeah, it's almost like, I feel like it's a trope in horror movies where it's like they're having like this huge, crazy, weird issue of like a serial killer, and then they walk into like a random establishment
Yeah,
and bump
yeah.
into like the religious zealot who is like, we're being surrounded by demons because of our sins. We need to absolve ourselves.
Yeah.
And then that's it, and they're never seen again. It's
Yeah.
just supposed to give you like a deeper, darker element.
I agree. And I think that's what this was, except it was comedic. It was
Yeah,
funny.
I don't know. I like how comedic it was. I just really wish that they utilized it more. Because I'm going to be honest, we watched this movie a few days ago. I don't even remember what the ending was. Like how did Michael die? Oh, he got hit by a car. That's what it was.
Okay,
He got hit by a car. And that's going to kill him more than like a fire. A sinkhole opened up in the middle of the road. He got sucked into a sinkhole, and that's what's going to kill him because he got pulled back down into hell where he belongs.
My question for Frankie, why did you make that sound?
Because Bailey was like, oh, I don't even remember how this movie ended.
I kept thinking about it. I was like,
And
how,
I was
how
like,
did they die?
oh my God, like I like the ending to this movie. Like I'm telling you, Geraldine, like this is a franchise. I'm completely sold on horror movies now. And Halloween is awesome. And
It is awesome.
I love Halloween. And this movie specifically, I'm gonna go ahead and spoil maybe my rating for later on, has been my favorite.
No,
of
it's
the Halloween
it's
franchise.
literally one of my favorite
It's so
films.
fun. And another thing I think is funny about it, it's number 4.
It's number 4.
And
How
we
often
like
does that
Scream
happen?
4. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like the fourth one that so far in our show has been like the wacky one. And to me, this one is the wacky one.
It is wacky, but comparing, because number 4 in Texas Chainsaw was The Next Generation. I did not like that one. I did
But it
not
was
like that
wacky.
one. Very wacky. Did it work? Did it not work? I feel like it's just kind of part of the formula now. The fourth one has to be
Is out there.
Out there.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, like in the Leprechaun franchise as well, because I didn't know it was a franchise, and it's a huge franchise. The Leprechaun franchise, I'm pretty sure, is crazy. Like I think the fourth one. Correct me if I'm wrong, viewers or listeners, but I'm pretty sure that one might be like the Leprechaun 4, like In the Hood or something like that. It's crazy, like the amount of films and like weirdness that comes with like creating these sequels because they're like, oh, this is a quick cash grab. Let's make more of these because they're successful, and then they do that. But then sometimes those cash grabs are better than the originals.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of part of the criticism for this movie. There's a couple of scenes in this movie that were actually done post the film being finished in additional photography, because when they went to test it out in crowds, they said like, oh, like it was a little boring. There wasn't enough action. There wasn't enough blood, guts, and gore. And Mustafa Akkad, he didn't like that kind of stuff. He's a very squeamish person, actually.
Yeah,
and
it's
so,
funny because he was like a big time producer for this slasher franchise.
but for the original Halloween, we don't see a lot of blood and guts.
True.
And so he was like, oh, I want to keep it in the spirit of the original as much as I can. So that was one of the reasons. But after they got those those like first time reviews back, they were like, okay, we got to add a couple of scenes to spice it up somehow. And the 2 scenes that they added, like it's hard to add scenes sometimes because you already made your movie and you're like,
Right.
oh God, where do we find stuff that isn't like consequential? The first one is in the ambulance. Originally, it just cut from them picking up Michael Myers to the next day they find the ambulance in that lake.
Oh, I'm glad they didn't do that. I'm glad they added the scene then because
They added that because they wanted some extra gore. So I don't know what department it is. Maybe it's the makeup department, the effects department. They're the ones that added seeing Michael like stand up and put his like thumb through that one EMT's head.
sometimes I feel like I wish I could do that when I have migraines.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Just kind of like, I wish I could scratch my brain, you know?
I thought it was a really cool effect. To me, it was really out there.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen Michael do this.
He's a killing machine, my guy. What do you mean?
And at the second scene that they added that wasn't in the original cut was the scene at the end of the movie where they're driving away in that truck, and you see Michael reach in and get the driver and put his thumb into his neck. So like, there's a lot of thumb stuff. You know what I mean? Like the
A
thumb.
lot of thumb stuff.
And
If
then
you're a
that
thumb
one-
sucker, this is the movie for you.
And that's when you got a lot of blood in that one. You know,
Yeah.
so that's how they spiced it up, and I think it worked.
I think it does work, and I think that it leaves us off in a really good place for Halloween 5. It's so exciting because, you know, Halloween 5 is not as good as this one, I will say, but I won't say anything about it. All I will say is my opinion is I think that Halloween 5 is okay compared to Halloween 4, but Halloween 4 is just chef's kiss for me.
Yeah.
Now I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum there, where I love it, versus I don't hate really anything about it. I
Yeah,
think
some
it's
people
just,
really don't like this one. They think it's too messy.
I like that it's messy a little bit because
too.
like it's a slasher, and slashers are not, you know, you're being chased by a crazy man who you don't know, and you know you don't have any idea as to why he's chasing you, but he's chasing you and he's killing everyone around you to get to you.
There are some goofy elements, like the fact that he finds another mechanic. Like, does Michael have like a connection with this mechanic uniform where he just
Right.
has to, okay, where's the nearest car dealership near me? You know, where's the nearest repair shop?
But that's a look, and he's serving.
He is. Yeah, I do appreciate that.
He's absolutely serving. I just don't understand why that mask is all like. What are the odds that you find these masks in like the stores and stuff? It's just goofy, you know.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, especially because it's like they do that in Scream, where it's like if this is like the killer that, you know, people have been like traumatized by, you would think they'd be like, none of these in our small town of Haddonfield, Illinois.
You know how people
Literally.
are. They're gonna make their own. They're gonna sell them on Etsy, and
True.
everybody's gonna buy them.
But to me, if my townspeople were traumatized, it'd be like, none of this anywhere, ever, at all, or you're going to be in trouble somehow.
That'll just entice people even more, you know?
Well, I mean, I feel like it's insensitive to the victims.
It is. But do
It
we
is.
care about that?
But
We
I
have
mean,
a
then again-
documentary on Dahmer on Netflix
Then
right
again,
now, you know?
we just talked about
We
like
love that stuff.
the insensitivity of our culture with that kind of stuff, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like we love the crime documentaries, but they also, those same people take it a step further and write to the killers, which we're not. We have the separation there. I would never want to write to the killers, but you know, I think that because this is a fictional character, it definitely adds more to the story. And narratively, how else is he going to find a new mask every film? You know, I think it's just silly in that aspect. I also love that they have some of these small little Easter eggs and tie-ins to the original films, like Jamie being drawn to a clown costume.
That's weird.
It is weird.
It's scary. I mean, kids are scary.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Kids are totally scary. I've heard it from parents, too, like, be saying, like, oh, yeah, I was asleep one night, and my toddler just came up to the end of the bed and just completely scared the crap out of me.
I know for a fact I've done that stuff to my mom, and not on purpose.
And if you say, like, creepy shit from a kid, like, that just sounds scary.
When my grandfather passed away, I was like, it was the day before I turned 2. They had the funeral or whatever. We were at this creepy funeral home. I don't remember it, but my mom tells the story and it's really funny. So she was like walking with me around the funeral home, and I'm just kind of adventuring, and I'm down this dark, creepy hallway in this funeral home, and I turn around and point above my mom's head, and I start laughing like, ha 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 ha, ghost, and she runs and takes
Yeah.
off without me.
Because that's creepy.
And she runs up to my dad and is like, go get your kid.
You're doing creepy shit.
I was a child. I don't know what I was doing. I don't have any recollection of it now. I wonder if I actually did see a ghost. You know what I mean?
You might have. You probably did.
Or maybe I just wanted to rile her up,
I doubt it.
cause a scene, be
You were-
dramatic.
You were too much of a what's Tootie Gucci? Tootie Gucci?
What are you saying?
Isn't that
What
they
are
say
you trying to say?
when you like follow
Tootie
the-
Gucci?
Yeah, they call you a Tootie Gucci when you do like
Goody two shoes.
that's the one. Yeah.
Tootie Gucci.
You're like
We gotta add that to the Webster Dictionary.
I was basically it. What Tootie Gucci? What'd you say?
goody two shoes.
What's the fucking difference?
Goody two shoes.
And you said
all
Tootie
three of those are
Gucci.
words.
I feel like I said all the syllables just in a different order.
Okay. But no, I don't know. I think that kids are kind of creepy in some aspect, but not always. Maybe they're just precious little babies. Maybe you're the creepy one.
I disagree.
Maybe they're just pointing out the demons you got running through you.
See, that's what I don't like. Don't do that.
What if they're like, I see darkness in your eyes.
Throw away the child.
I'm just imagining like a kid saying it like that.
Yeah.
I see darkness in
Just
your eyes.
Pick up the child and put it in a trash can.
Deletus to fetus.
Yeah,
All of the things.
that's some bad juju right there. See, that's what
Anyway,
they should have done with Jamie in this movie, I guess.
She did no wrong.
Do you remember the end of the movie where she killed her adopted mother?
She's fine.
No.
You're like, every child gets one pass.
She has a lot of anger, unresolved trauma. Listen,
Unresolved trauma from something that we never see or are told about. Yeah.
That's true.
listen.
I like that, though.
Obviously, there is some connection to Michael there. Clearly, the apple does not fall far from the tree. As long as she does it one time and it's under control, I think.
I don't think it's under control.
Well,
Because that's what Michael did. He only killed one person before he was sent to the insane asylum.
that's true. That's true. That's true. That's
I feel like it would have
that's
been
true.
more poetic if she killed Rachel.
Oh, I would have loved that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's awful, but it's like Michael killed his older sister.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
What if she killed
and she
her
was and
older
Rachel was
sister?
protecting her throughout the whole
Exactly.
movie. And at the
Wouldn't that
beginning
have
of the
been-
movie she was complaining about Jamie. Oh, that would have been
Exactly.
awesome.
I'm sure they didn't because they wanted Rachel in a
Rachel.
future movie.
Rachel's
I
great.
assume,
I do like
but
Rachel.
I love Rachel. Yeah, I mean, if we can talk about the ending real quick just for a second, like I absolutely love it. Like they kind of show it happening. Like, oh wait, somebody's putting on a mask. Like, oh, they grabbed the scissors.
Did you have any inkling or any idea of who it was going to be?
Yeah. At that point, I was like, it's gonna be the little fucking girl.
Yeah, we were talking about that actually because during the scene, I was like, if this is Rachel, the camera is way too tall. This is like a 6 foot man.
They're doing it again.
That's the exact same thing that they did in the first movie.
But it was Jamie, and then seeing her at the top of the stairs, just like we saw Michael at the outside of the house in the first one, and then seeing Donald Pleasance, Dr. Loomis, come around the corner, see the child holding the scissors, start going like, no. That was
Epic.
so good. That was so good.
Very compelling performances,
Is
you
it a
know?
little corny? Yeah.
Little bit.
Is it a silly? Yeah. But is it compelling and charming? Yes.
It's to me, it's just as good as like the Scream tie-in where it's like, oh no, she's gonna be a Billy, but she's not. So it's kind of fun that they toy with that, and it feels like the blueprint for what we got in the newer Screams.
All we were missing is for the mom to go, Jamie. Like,
Michael.
I quote that all the time now. I literally go, Michael.
It's
all
so
the time.
stupid. God, like girl. First of all, put your titties away. Michael.
No. That is something we lost
It
in
almost
this
felt
one.
like she just shook him up even more. You know what I mean?
I mean, probably,
Like
just
Michael.
as far as the direction given. We
I'm
don't-
like, please.
We don't get any full frontal in this movie.
We do get boobs.
In a bra.
No, she takes a
No,
bra.
yeah, we see full boobs.
I don't remember.
I'm
Good.
surprised. Surprised. Maybe
yeah.
they
Glad
weren't
you were
as-
focused on something else.
Anyway, Brady, I don't get his sell. Like, first of all, he wants to hang out with Rachel. He wants to be with Rachel. When she's like, hey, I have to freaking babysit my adopted adopted sister, he's upset, first of all. Like, red flag.
red flag, yeah,
Red flag.
obviously.
And then when Rachel finds him at Kelly's house, red flag, right?
Red flag.
And then he goes outside and he's like, no, you don't get it. It's because you were being a bitch earlier. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
Homie?
he's literally like, well, you canceled on me, and that really like. I needed something to do.
He's like, it's like, no, wait, you don't understand.
It's like, I wasn't going to get any from you, so I had to get it somewhere.
Exactly.
I was like, what the fuck are you trying? I didn't understand it at all. And then she leaves, Rachel leaves, right? And then Kelly's like, so you're coming back inside or what? And he kind of like pouts like, I guess. And then he goes back inside.
Because he's a guy. At the end of the day, what's he going to do? He's going to still bang her.
And that's the plan, I guess. And they do that thing. But then when Rachel comes back into the house and with the officer Meeker and now like everybody's inside the house, it's locked down. He still has like this like thing where he's protecting Rachel and Jamie, right? Mm-hmm. And that is my one complaint about Rachel in the whole movie is she pulls a Lori here where Rachel and Jamie are at the top of the stairs and they're just yelling out, Brady, you got to come up the stairs. Brady, you got to come up. And Brady's like, no, you guys go. I'll keep it back. I'll hold him back. And this goes on for like, I swear, a straight minute where I'm like, guys, he's not leaving. Like, just get out, right? Do your own thing. To the point where, like, they watch him die. Like, as soon as you see him, like, losing this fight, you need to get out of there.
Like, Michael walks so slow, too. They could have been, like, 2 blocks down by the time that this guy gets hit.
For sure.
It's so silly, but also it's just funny in a way. It's kind of campy because of the way that slashers are. Slashers don't make any sense, ever. Nobody ever is using their brain. It's like Sydney, like, complains about, like, women running upstairs when there's an open door, and they make fun of that in like the Scary Movie like series as well. So I mean, it's just funny.
I really like you bring up Scream, Tatum getting trapped in like the doggy door in the garage.
First of all, it wouldn't hold her. That's just so stupid, but it's also just hilarious because it's like just crawl under the garage.
That's kind of like from the first movie moment where she's just like kind of shaking for the camera. I feel like
especially because behind she's wearing a skirt and she's just like.
Yeah.
You see, it's like that reminds me of the first Halloween where
that's what we're talking about.
Oh, okay, yeah, where she gets stuck in the window.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep, absolutely. The male gaze, as we talked about, so famous in those movies.
Something else that didn't make sense in this movie that I wanted to point out that I actually liked was the cops actually believing Dr. Loomis,
like immediately,
and supporting him and being like, Michael's on the loose. We have to get the entire town safe. We have to evacuate.
That's how it should be.
That's what I'm saying. They were supporting somebody who had a problem. Like, that is completely unrealistic. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I enjoyed the vibes, though.
No, yeah, absolutely. Because it feels good. It's like, wow, you're believed. You're taken seriously. Wow, we have a lot that we need to work on. Like, it's on a busy like night.
And I mean, even when Officer Meeker gets his like house locked down or whatever, he's like, oh, there's a bunch of like civilians out there hunting Michael, and they might get somebody hurt, and they do. I got to go do something about it. So he's not even just thinking about his family, but he's still trying to protect his community,
right?
Even when his family is like in danger.
I hate shit like that. It's like, quit being strong. Stay home. Dumbasses, we gotta go on a manhunt.
I like the energy. I feel like what they did was stupid, but I think me and Bailey both appreciated it. Or like, oh, it'd be cool to see like the community versus Michael, because this is a town that's been haunted by this guy.
Okay, I'm very interested to know what you think in the future. That's all I'll say. Very interested.
Also, I liked how some of the guys that were like from the bar were like, my son got killed by Michael 10 years ago. Like, I'm gonna kill this guy. Like that's interesting.
Yeah, there's something there.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Very, very cool that you guys can appreciate the story there. And I think that overall, though, I just love what they've done with it, and I love that we get a younger person who is just not a throwaway character like Tommy and Lindsay in 1.
Yeah.
I mean, we barely see him in 2, but mostly 1. It's like, whatever. It's just kind of nice to focus on another young person and then seeing what they do for survival.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the characterization of all the cast in this movie is a lot stronger than Halloween, or like, I talked about how a couple weeks ago I went to go see Texas Chainsaw. Mm-hmm. Do you remember any of those characters? The only characters I remember from that movie that had a strong personality was Sally Hardesty
and Franklin.
And Franklin, right? But in this movie, like, I know Brady, I know Kelly. Mm-hmm. The whole conversation Kelly and Rachel had, like, in the kitchen, where Kelly was like, it's your fault. Like, you can't be so like naive, or else this isn't going to be the last man you lose to somebody else. You know what I mean? Kind of like
Which is a horrible conversation. It's like, obviously just put out,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
basically
you're fine.
that's basically and she said something like, he's not married and I have a right to do what's best for me.
I mean, girl boss, but also girl failure.
Yeah, so like they have personality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Brady's a jackass. I don't know how to describe Kelly. You can do that for me. Rachel strong-willed, and Jamie's the kid in the middle of it all, or even like Officer Meeker. Like I just feel like this movie has strong characters
Yeah.
and a strong cast.
I mean, you care about them, and you don't want any of them to die. And when you see them, well, except for Brady, but and then when you see them die, you're like, oh no, please.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I don't want you to go.
I think all that combines together into like I think what me and you like about the movie so much is that it has a lot of heart.
Yeah. And that's something that I feel like with horror movies, there's a lot of heart in general. Even if it's not taken seriously, even if it's not well executed, there is always a lot of heart and passion and soul put into these projects, because a lot of the time they're smaller budgets, or a lot of the time it's just like a continuous story to tell that people have grown to love. So like there's a lot like at stake with that. So they want to make sure that they do right by it. Now, I know that this film gets a lot of criticism. I personally don't stand by the criticism. I love this film. I love it a lot. Do I see what people have critiques about? Yeah, I do. And I can understand why they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, great film.
Yeah.
Great film. Love it.
Are we ready to rate and rank it?
Yes, but I'm going to throw a curveball. I'm going to go first.
Okay, go first.
I'm going to go first. Just
Go
because
ahead.
it's quick and easy. I love the film. There's not much that I can complain about. It's high on my list. I would watch it again and again and again. It's got a high rewatch value for me and nostalgia for me. I love Jamie. I love Rachel, and I love watching them together. These are really good films, and they really, even though it is shot in the springtime, it just makes me feel like it's fall. It's just really, when I watch it, I'm like, ooh, this is an October film.
I mean, it starts off
Ooh.
that way. Starts off that way, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We're in Utah, but actually we're in Haddonfield, Illinois.
Yep.
In the like Halloween season. It's perfect. So to me, it's a 9 out of 10.
What'd you say?
A 9 out of 10.
Okay. Well, I think I might surprise you with my score.
Okay.
Because I feel the same way you do, Geraldine. I feel like this movie, all of its mistakes, right? All of its like downfalls, the things that people might complain about it, I feel like are actually things that I enjoy a lot about the movie.
I agree.
I think there are things that people might complain about being campy, not being as sophisticated as the original, maybe being repetitive. But I think anything that might be repetitive from the first one, I actually enjoy the way they do it better in this one. I don't think this is a better movie than the original, but I think this is a far more enjoyable movie than the original, at least for me.
Okay.
And that's why I give Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers a 10 out of 10.
Ooh.
I love this movie. Completely love this movie. It's great.
Okay, so that puts it at our number 1.
It's our new number 1 spot.
And you know what? No regrets. I love
Zero.
it. I love it so much.
You guys could talk BS about us in the comments. Go ahead. I know this list might not align with yours.
But that's why it's our list and
That's why
not
it's
yours.
our list. That's right. So our new list is number 1, Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers. Number 2, Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And number 3, Halloween 2.
I think that's a fair list, and I stand by it. I stand
Yeah.
by our choices.
Me too.
Bailey, what would you rate this film?
You know,
Hold-
I
hold on.
also.
Oh.
Oh.
But before, I just want to remind the audience that Bailey rated Halloween
Oh, yes.
a 5, Halloween 2 a 6. Where are we at now, Bailey?
We're at a 7.5.
Whoa, okay.
Okay, because this was definitely my favorite out of the bunch. I think that they have just exponentially gotten better and better with the script writing, the characters, et cetera, et cetera. But like I was talking about, they have some places where they're having missed opportunities and they can make a better, like connection and the overall plot and storyline. We get told over and over and over again from Dr. Loomis that Michael is like the embodiment of evil. And all this stuff. It's like, let's play it up. Let's actually manifest that, man. Let's give him some actual motivation, and make it like delve even deeper. Don't be afraid of like breaking into like this sort of kooky, weird boundary, right? Just dive in. Get dark-sided. I want it to happen, but I really enjoyed this movie. I think I could play it over and over again.
Well, I feel like we've made progress here. We've come a long way from a 5, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah,
I'm too.
And see, that's why I had to rate the first one a 5.
I'm not going to lie. I was a little nervous coming into this one. I was like, oh no, what if she hates this one?
No, I really enjoyed enjoyed it. Like
I
I said,
loved
I
it.
would have liked it. Like I don't have the full scope of the entire series in my memory bank, so I don't know what to expect or who's going to be important in the future, if anybody, from these movies. But I would have loved to see Jamie kill Rachel, because I think that would have been
It
more
would have been really,
satisfactory
really dope,
in a plot
actually.
way,
Yeah.
right? And I would have loved to see them play more on the wacky priest character. Just dive in. He's
Yeah, me
funny.
too.
He's weird.
He is weird.
Like, don't be afraid to be weird and silly.
You know, I'm very excited to see how you guys react to the other timelines, and then we'll have to do like a deep dive into how we think the timelines interact with each other, and how because there's so many things I wish I could talk about, but I'm sworn to secrecy right now.
Well, I'm so excited. I didn't expect to like Halloween this much.
Yeah.
But you're teasing us right now with like the
I know.
future
You
installments.
know what?
But I'm
Just-
so excited to get into it whenever we
Just
do.
trust that I will be your guide
Okay.
on this journey for the different timelines, because they're so good. And there's one timeline that I will be totally brand new with you. So
Oh.
I haven't seen any of the Halloween 20 timeline. So that is H2O, and that is Halloween Resurrection. But those are different timelines, so we're not even going to worry about it today. Well, that's all that I have today for Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. But stalk us next time as we dissect Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers.
Follow us on social media at Fright Flight Pod, and turn on notifications for Spotify and YouTube, or whatever you listen or watch us on.
And then, yeah, we'll see you next week. Well, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa.
Produced by me, Bailey B.
Edited by Geraldine Johnson and music composition by Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa.